Subscribe to Dr. Nightmare Channel now.
Story 1. The basement door that was never meant to open. I was 17 the first time I stayed overnight in the house on Cypress Lane. My mom had just remarried, and we moved in with her new husband, Carl, and his daughter, Meredith. It wasn't the kind of old, creaky house you see in horror movies. It was modern, 2 stories, beige paint, well-kept lawn. But there was something about it that didn't feel right from the beginning. The layout was typical: living room, kitchen, dining area downstairs, bedrooms upstairs. But there was one part of the house that never got mentioned: the basement. There was a door behind the pantry, plain white, locked with an old brass keyhole and no key. Every time I walked past it, I felt like it was watching me. I know that sounds dumb, but that's the only way to describe it. Like a pressure in the air, a faint vibration that ran through your body if you got too close. Carl told me flat out never to mess with it. Old junk storage, he said. Nothing down there you need to worry about. But he didn't say it casually. His tone was sharp, defensive. It didn't match the laid-back dad persona he tried so hard to pull off. The first night I stayed there, I heard footsteps in the hallway around 3 a.m. I figured it was Carl or Meredith going to the bathroom, but when I peeked out my door, the hallway was empty. The next night, I heard whispering, very faint, like someone having a conversation downstairs. I opened my door again and listened. The voices were coming from the kitchen. I crept down the stairs and paused on the last step. The pantry door was open. The door to the basement, the one that was supposed to be locked, was wide open. I didn't go in. I just stood there, frozen. The air was so cold pouring out of that dark stairwell, it felt like winter. I turned to run back upstairs, but Carl was suddenly behind me. He didn't yell. He didn't ask what I was doing. He just slowly reached around me and closed the basement door without a word. Then he locked it with a little brass key and walked back upstairs like nothing happened. That was the moment I knew something was seriously wrong. I couldn't sleep after that. Every night I'd hear things, scraping sounds, heavy thuds, dragging noises from beneath the floor. I asked Meredith about it one afternoon when Carl wasn't home. She didn't even look at me when she answered. "It's always been like that. We don't talk about it." "What's down there?" She shook her head. "Something that doesn't like to be forgotten." I tried to laugh it off like she was messing with me, but she didn't smile. She just walked away and went back to her room. That night, I dreamed of the basement, not in a normal way, more like I was trapped inside it. Everything was pitch black and I could hear someone breathing, really close. I turned in the dark, trying to find a door, a light, anything. But all I could hear was breathing, and then whispering my name. When I woke up, the pillow was soaked with sweat. I got up to get a glass of water and nearly screamed when I saw the pantry door open again. But this time, Carl was standing in front of it, holding the key. He looked at me, and I'll never forget what he said. "She's getting louder. I think she knows you're here." I didn't ask what he meant. I didn't want to know, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. The next day, I asked my mom about the house. She brushed it off like she always does. Too busy to listen, too distracted to care. "Carl's just being weird," she said. "It's probably just mold or rats or something." But I couldn't shake the feeling that we were all pretending something wasn't happening. That night, everything changed. I woke up at 2:47 a.m. to a loud crash, like furniture being thrown. I ran out of my room, heart pounding, and saw Carl banging on the pantry door. It was open again. He turned to me, pale and sweating. "Get your sister. Get out of the house." I didn't ask questions. I grabbed Meredith and we ran outside into the cold. We stood barefoot on the front lawn, shivering, while Carl stayed inside. We waited and waited. Finally, after what felt like hours, he came out. He looked like he had aged 10 years. His hands were trembling. He didn't speak. He just sat on the porch and stared at the door. We didn't sleep that night. The next morning, he told us what happened. Carl's mother had lived in the house before us. She had schizophrenia, and after her father died, she kept saying something lived in the basement. She claimed it spoke to her, whispered through the walls. Everyone thought she was hallucinating. Until the day she disappeared. Carl was 15. He woke up one morning and she was just gone. No sign of a break-in, no trace. Just her bedroom empty and the basement door wide open. He locked it after that, changed the lock, threw away the key. But when he moved back in with Meredith after his divorce, the door was open again. He didn't want to believe it, but he started hearing the same things his mother described. The voices, the dragging, the breathing. He tried sealing the door, but it always came open eventually. And now, with me in the house, things were getting worse. I told my mom everything. She didn't believe a word of it. She said Carl was unstable, that he was having an episode, that maybe he was dangerous. She wanted to leave, take me with her. But that night, she heard the noises too. She stood outside the pantry door at 3 a.m. with her hand pressed against it, listening. I stood next to her. I asked her if she heard the voice. "I think it's calling your name," she said, barely audible. The door started to rattle. She screamed and backed away. Carl came running and shouted for us to go upstairs. He slammed the door and locked it, breathing like he had run a marathon. The next morning, we left, packed everything, moved in with my aunt in another town, left everything behind. But it didn't end there. The dreams started again. Every night, I'd be back in the basement, surrounded by darkness, and that voice, always whispering my name. Last month, Meredith called me. She said Carl was missing. No signs of a break-in, no struggle, just gone. And the basement door was wide open. They say he just walked away. The police chalked it up to stress, midlife crisis. They don't know about the door, about the voice. I still dream about it. And now, when I wake up, I sometimes find muddy footprints on the floor, damp, like someone had just come inside. And I live in a second-floor apartment.
Story 2. The family upstairs was never alive. I moved into the duplex on Winstead Avenue 2 years ago after getting laid off and needing a place that didn't suck my bank account dry. It was cheap. Too cheap. The kind of cheap that makes you question what's wrong with it. It was an older brick home split into 2 floors. I got the ground floor. The second story was supposedly rented out to a quiet older couple named the Holloways. I never saw them, not once. Their car was always parked in the driveway, a 2003 Honda CR-V with faded paint and a cracked taillight. I'd hear their footsteps sometimes, slow and deliberate. Occasionally, I'd hear what sounded like old music playing faintly upstairs, the kind you'd hear on vinyl, full of static and warble. My landlord, a guy named Peter, told me not to worry about them. He said, "They keep to themselves," he said. "Been there longer than I've owned the place." For the first month, everything was fine, quiet, normal. Then, things started to shift. It began with the light in the hallway outside my bathroom flickering every time I walked past. Then it started flickering when no one was around. Then it stayed on even after I unscrewed the bulb. One night, I woke up at 3:17 a.m. to the sound of footsteps directly above me. Heavy ones, not like the old couple moving around. These sounded angry, stumping. I froze in bed and just listened. Then, something dropped. It shook the ceiling hard enough to make a piece of dust fall on my forehead. I shot out of bed and grabbed the broom from the kitchen. I banged it on the ceiling 3 times. Everything went silent. The next morning, I asked Peter if the Holloways were okay. He gave me a weird look. He asked, "You heard them?" I said, "Yeah, something big fell up there. They all right?" He stared at me, lips slightly parted. He said, I haven't heard from them in months. Rent comes automatically. I've left voicemails, but..." I said, "You haven't checked on them?" He said, "I don't like bothering tenants." That was the first red flag. That night, I went outside around 10 p.m. to take the trash out, and as I passed by the house, I looked up at their window. The curtain moved, just a little, like someone was peeking. I called out, "Hey, everything okay up there?" Nothing. Then, the porch light flicked on by itself. I didn't sleep well that night. The next day, I left for work around 7 a.m. and noticed something strange. The Holloways' mail was piling up. Newspapers, too. I walked over and checked the front door. There was a heavy stench in the air. Rotten, damp, almost like wet wood and meat. I called Peter. I told him, "You need to check that apartment. Something's not right." He reluctantly agreed and showed up that evening with a spare key. I was standing at the bottom of the stairs while he went up. He knocked first, then again, then he used the key. The door creaked open. He stepped in. I waited. 30 seconds, a minute, 2. Then I heard him scream. It wasn't just a yelp, it was a broken, desperate scream that made my stomach tighten. I ran up after him and found him standing in the middle of the hallway staring at something on the floor. There were bodies. Mummified, curled in unnatural positions, clothes melted into the skin. It was the Holloways, long dead, maybe for months. But I had heard them. The footsteps, the music, the drops. The cops ruled it a quiet death. Natural causes, bodies left undisturbed in a sealed apartment. No one ever questioned the noises, but I knew what I heard. After the cops left, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing footsteps again, but now they weren't above me. They were in my apartment. I checked every corner, every closet, nothing. I thought I was losing my mind. Then, one night, I saw them. I woke up to the sound of static like an old radio trying to tune out. I opened my eyes and my TV was on, buzzed out. I didn't leave it on. Standing in the reflection of the screen was a man and a woman, stiff, gray, watching me. When I turned around, they were gone. I tried to move out, packed my bags, and went to stay at a friend's place, but things followed me. The first night at his place, he asked me if I brought a radio. I hadn't. We heard it together. Soft, warbled jazz music coming from the bathroom. We opened the door. Nothing was there, except the smell, the same wet, decaying stench from upstairs. I've moved 5 times since then. Different cities, different coasts. But every few nights, I still hear footsteps overhead, and I know they're still looking for someone else to join them.
Story 3: Whispers in the Crawl Space. I've worked as a home inspector for 15 years. I've been inside every kind of house you can imagine. Mansions, roach-infested rentals, hoarder nightmares, storm-damaged wrecks. But there's one house I'll never forget. Not because of what I saw, but because of what I heard. It was a 2-story farmhouse in rural Pennsylvania. Old, but sturdy. The kind of place where the air always smells like dust and insulation. The client was a woman named Sheila Westwood. She'd inherited the house from her grandparents after they passed. She wanted to renovate and sell it. "Just tell me what needs to be fixed," she said, handing me the keys. "I'm not planning to stay here longer than I have to." From the outside, the place looked decent. Weathered wood siding, sagging porch, old swing set in the backyard. Inside, it was dated, but intact. Worn wallpaper, yellowed light switches, creaky floorboards. Sheila didn't stay while I inspected. She said she'd be back in a few hours. I started in the attic, then worked my way down. Everything was going fine until I got to the crawl space. It was under the main hallway, accessed through a narrow square panel behind a coat closet. A flashlight and a dust mask are musts for this part of the job. I popped the panel open and immediately gagged. The air smelt wrong. Not like mold or rot, more like something sour, chemical. I checked for gas leaks, nothing, so I climbed inside. The crawl space was bigger than I expected. Maybe 6 feet tall in the center, supported by rusted beams and cracked concrete. I walked slowly, my flashlight cutting across dusty support posts and cobwebbed insulation. Then I heard it. A whisper. I froze. It was faint, but it was unmistakable. A human voice, raspy, like someone with dry vocal cords trying to speak from the back of their throat. "Go back." I turned off my flashlight, heart pounding. Maybe it was air leaking through the pipes, or animals. Maybe even my own breathing. Then I heard it again, closer this time. "Don't look." That's when I saw the footprints. In the dirt, bare feet, small, like a child's. They weren't there when I entered it. I was sure of it. I snapped a few photos and backed away, crawling toward the hatch. My boot caught on something hard. I looked down and found what looked like a child's toy, an old wooden spinning top, cracked, and stained. I left it where it was. Back upstairs, I tried to shake it off. I told myself it was the acoustics, maybe the old foundation groaning. I finished the rest of the inspection quickly, documenting the standard issues, wiring, cracked window seals, water stains. When Sheila returned, I gave her a quick rundown and mentioned the crawl space. I kept it vague. "You ever go down there?" I asked. She hesitated. "Once, years ago, when I was a kid. My grandpa told me never to open that panel." I asked why. She shrugged. He said, "There were things down there that used to be human." I thought he was joking. She wasn't laughing now. Later that week, she called me. Her voice was shaking. She said, "I stayed at the house last night. Someone whispered my name from under the floor." I didn't know what to say. I'm not a ghost hunter, not even religious, but her fear was real. Then she said something that chilled me. "I checked the crawl space this morning. There were handprints on the floor. Tiny ones, like they were pushing up from underneath." I asked if she took pictures. She said she did. She texted them to me. And what I saw made my stomach drop. The handprints were smeared in dust. But what made them horrifying wasn't just the size or number. It was that they were all reaching upward, like something was clawing toward the floorboards. She moved out that same day. Never went back. She paid a cleanup crew to empty the house and list it through a wholesaler. I don't blame her. But here's the part that keeps me up at night. About a month later, I took a different inspection job 2 towns over. When I finished and got back to my truck, I noticed something odd. In the bed of my truck, sitting in the corner under an old tarp, was a wooden spinning top, cracked, stained, identical to the one I saw in that crawl space. I never took it, never touched it, but somehow it followed me.
Story 4. Apartment 4C never signed a lease. I moved into the Easton Heights apartment complex during the winter of last year. It was supposed to be temporary, just long enough to get back on my feet after a messy breakup. Cheap, close to work, and nothing fancy. The kind of place with laundry in the basement and neighbors you rarely see. My unit was 4B, 4th floor, 2nd door on the right. It was small but clean, hardwood floors, old radiator heat, windows that let in the right kind of morning light. I liked it. The first thing I noticed was how quiet the building was. You'd think with 6 floors and dozens of tenants, there'd be noise, TVs, music, conversations. But aside from the occasional footstep echo in the stairwell, it was dead silent. Even the couple across the hall in 4A kept to themselves. But then there was 4C, the door next to mine. It looked like the others, beige paint, dented mail slot, silver numbers slightly crooked, but I never saw anyone go in or out. No deliveries, no signs of life. Yet, I heard sounds from inside every night. At first, I thought it was plumbing, old pipes making old building noises, but it wasn't that. It was shuffling, breathing, sometimes soft tapping against the wall we shared. Once I heard something drop. It sounded like a heavy book or box. I knocked once, just to see. I waited. Nothing.
The super, Joe, was always around the lobby, fixing something or pretending to. I asked him about 4C. He said, "Don't worry about that one." He avoided eye contact. I paused. Vacant? Then why do I hear noises? He muttered something under his breath and walked away. I didn't push it. But after that, the sounds got louder. Not every night, but often enough to make me sleep with earbuds in. One night, the tapping against the wall got rhythmic, like a pattern, like code. I tried to ignore it. Then came the whispering. It started faint, like someone murmuring a phone conversation too close to the wall. I'd remove my earbuds, and the voices would stop. When I put them back in, I'd hear them again, inside my own apartment. I recorded one of the nights, just to prove to myself I wasn't imagining it. The audio clip picked up something I hadn't heard with my ears. Breathing. Not the kind a person makes when they sleep or sigh. It was strained, wet, like someone gasping slowly through a damaged throat. After that, I couldn't stay calm. I started watching the hallway. Every chance I got, I'd peek out my peephole. Still, no one ever entered or left 4C. Then, one night, around 3 a.m., I heard the unmistakable sound of a doorknob turning. I sat up in bed, holding my breath. My doorknob. Not jiggling like someone trying to break in. Slowly turning. Silently. Carefully. I got up and grabbed the baseball bat I kept in my closet. When I peeked through the peephole, I saw my door was still shut, but 4C's door was wide open. There was no light inside, no motion, just the gaping black of the apartment's interior. I didn't sleep that night. In the morning, it was closed again. I marched straight down to Joe and demanded to see the lease for 4C. He told me again, no one lives there. I wasn't letting it go this time. I heard someone in there. I saw the door open. Someone's living in that unit. He stared at me for a long moment before finally saying, "We sealed that apartment off 10 years ago. There was an incident." I asked him what kind of incident. He shook his head. Old tenant lost her mind, said someone was living in the walls, complained about voices, tapping, breathing. The police did a welfare check. She was gone. Gone? No trace, no signs of a break-in, but every wall inside was scratched, like from the inside. My mouth dried. He added, "We sealed it up. No one's been in there since." I couldn't believe what I was hearing, but I saw the door open. He looked me dead in the eye. There's no doorknob on that side. Only the inside has a handle. I left. I didn't ask more, but I didn't sleep for 3 nights. I kept my lights on and stared at that door every time I passed. Then came the knocking, this time from inside my closet. 3 slow knocks. I opened it with the baseball bat ready, heart slamming in my chest. Empty. Just my clothes. But something was different. At the back of the closet wall, behind the coats, a small square of drywall was missing. A hole. Roughly cut like someone had punched through with their fists. I stared into the blackness beyond. I should have walked away, but I leaned in with my phone light and looked. There was a crawl space, about 2 feet wide, dusty, lined with wires and insulation, and on the far wall, I saw another hole, leading into what looked like a room next door, apartment 4C. I called the police. They searched, found the crawl space, found the hollowed-out passage behind the wall, but no one was there. They didn't believe me when I said someone had been inside. They chalked it up to vagrants or squatters, told me to talk to the landlord. Joe didn't say anything. He just gave me a notice. He was evicting me. Said the lease had expired. No refund, no apology. I packed and left the next day. Moved in with a friend for a while. But the story didn't end there. 2 months later, I got a call from a local news reporter. They'd found a body inside a sealed wall during renovation work in Easton Heights. A woman. The same tenant who vanished 10 years ago. The drywall had been sealed over from the outside, but from the inside it was scratched to pieces. And someone had carved over and over into the wood beams around her. Still here.
Story 5: The Last Sermon at St. Arlo's. I used to photograph abandoned buildings. Not professionally, just a hobby. Some people like nature walks. I like peeling paint, shattered stained glass, and dust-heavy silence. There's something honest about places left behind. Last October, I stumbled across an old church about 45 minutes outside my town in West Virginia. It wasn't listed on any Urban Explorers blogs. No coordinates, no warning tags, just a single worn mention on a forgotten online forum. St. Arlo's. Condemned in 1984. Don't go in. Of course, I went. The church sat alone on a forested hill, wrapped in vines and shadow. The road leading to it was barely a trail anymore. It felt like the trees were trying to swallow it back into the earth. The first thing I noticed was how quiet it was. No birds, no bugs, just wind moving through broken glass windows like breath through teeth. I stepped inside and everything felt off. The pews were all still there, though crooked and dust-covered. The altar had collapsed. Torn hymn books littered the aisle like fallen leaves. But what stood out most were the scratch marks, deep gouges in the wood floor leading from the back of the sanctuary up to the pulpit, like something had been dragged. I began taking photos. The lighting was perfect, golden hour sun cutting through the broken stained glass in scattered beams. But every time I checked my camera, the photos came out wrong, warped, overexposed, full of blurs that looked like faces. I thought it was the lens. Then I heard something. A voice. A man's voice coming from somewhere deeper in the church. I froze, heart racing. I hadn't seen another car for miles. I was supposed to be alone. The voice was mumbling, chanting. I followed the sound, stepping carefully across rotting wood. It led to a stairwell that disappeared into blackness. I raised my flashlight and went down. The basement was worse than upstairs. The air was thick, damp, and smelled like mildew and old meat. The chanting was louder now. It was coming from behind a heavy wooden door. I approached it slowly. Then it stopped. I stood there inches from the door, straining to hear anything. Nothing. I reached for the knob. The door opened before I touched it. Inside was a small windowless room, stone walls, a broken crucifix on the floor, and candles, hundreds of melted down candles forming a circle around a wooden chair. And in the chair sat a man, or what was left of one. He was mummified, skin like leather, hands folded in prayer, eyeless sockets pointed straight at me. Pinned to his chest with a rusted nail was a note. It read, "He wouldn't stop preaching, so we gave him an audience that would listen forever." I backed out of the room slowly, and the door slammed shut behind me. Total darkness. I fumbled for the knob, locked. I banged, screamed, but no one heard, no one came. Then I heard footsteps descending the stairs. Heavy, deliberate. They stopped outside the door. Silence. Then the chanting started again. Louder. But this time, it wasn't one voice. It was dozens, then hundreds, all murmuring, layered over each other in a language I didn't recognize. The candles lit themselves, one by one, circling the chair. The corpse in the chair lifted its head, cracking, brittle sounds, and pointed at me. The chanting rose to a roar. I felt the room spinning, walls closing in. I lost consciousness. When I woke up, it was daylight. I was back in my car, parked at the bottom of the hill. My camera was in the passenger seat. Every photo was gone, except one. It was a photo of me, standing in front of the pulpit, smiling. But I never took it. And behind me in the photo, the pews were filled, row after row of rotting, eyeless congregants, all staring forward, hands clasped in prayer.